Let's go ahead and discuss my top 5 players to watch heading into the CWL Pro League play-in, keeping in mind that action kicks off Wednesday, January 16th. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting at number 5, we have Apathy of Team Envy. And one of my favorite things about Team Envy heading into Black Ops 4 was the duo-ship that we were supposed to see between Apathy and Hook, especially in the SMG department, right? In the close quarters type fights that we were supposed to see, the amount of talent that was kind of in that specific category, I was stoked for. That was one of the major highlights about this new roster, e.g. coming now into Envy, plus Hook, obviously, was the factor of those two being together. And like I said, however, at CWL Vegas, we saw Apathy run a Maddox instead of a SOG. Now, I wasn't a fan of that, and many people, as of recent, have been talking and giving a lot of, talk toward Kenny, should he be running the SOG rather than a Maddox, which I absolutely agree with, but I think the same conversation should also be brought up for Apathy, because he's doing the exact same thing. Obviously, different situations, different teams could lead to those results. However, we need, in my opinion, to see Apathy running more of a dedicated SMG role. And I took a random match that Envy had at CWL Vegas. I took their pool play game versus FaZe, a big match. A lot of people thought, especially including myself, that would decide the pool. However, not the case. Regardless, in this series, FaZe started off very, very well. Leading into this one, they had a 2-0 start. Envy choked a lead in Game 2 S&D. Aches actually ended up leading the fray back. He pretty much picked up Envy and said, you know what, I'm going to go double positive in back-to-back games and the hard point of control to force a Game 5, in which Envy would go on to that Game 5 and lose it 6-0. And I believe in that game that I was referencing to, Apathy had a very low, I think it was a 0.8 respawn KD, hardpoint as well matched that. Just did not have the same performance that we were expecting to have from him on this lineup. Like, we're expecting to see a dominant performance come through from Apathy, not just in S&D, because he's been inconsistent in Search and Destroy throughout his entire career. There's sometimes where he has great performances, there's sometimes where it's around the 0.9, 0.8 high range. We need to see that consistent performance in the respawns. Don't get me wrong, right? When I was talking about Aches, don't get me wrong. Aches can lead a team at times, but not with his gun skill. He's not meant to be on this team as the leading Maddox. Every team in the top, 4, right? We talked about LG. They had Gunless. Temp for Splice. United, right? They had Arcedy's kind of running that mixed role between a Maddox and an ICR, and then for Optic Gaming, we had Dashi, right, with the Maddox. The Maddox is the gun to look at, and I understand that from a point of Envy's sake. Okay, let's go ahead and give it to Apathy, but clearly he shouldn't be running that role, and maybe something should be switched up to make sure that they have a dominant Maddox in a position. But as well as that Maddox, every team usually had a dominant SMG, and I think for Envy, they need to kind of focus on their guns, realize their roles, and give Apathy the SOG, which is what he should be running. Throughout his entire career, he's been known as one of the fastest and the quickest reactions of anyone in the CWL, or even in past, in just the entire Call of Duty world. He's been known as one of the fastest players to be looking out for. And I'm going to be keeping a very close eye to Apathy at this tournament. I think for his success as well as Team Envy's, it's going to be difficult, especially in Pool B, where you've got Lightning Pandas, G2 especially, and Heretics waiting for you. They're not going to take anything lightly, but Envy cannot continue to afford to have Apathy dropping a 0.87 respawn KD, which is what he had at CWL Vegas. Let's move forward. At number 4, we've got Nolson from Team Sween. Coming into CWL Vegas, everyone had their eyes on Europe, the best in Europe. We were looking at Rated and Scraps from Red Reserve. We were looking at the international squad on Reciprocity with Wiskin, Shawnee, and Zed. We were looking at Lightning Pandas, right? We're looking at Alex, Madcat, and Dave, and heck, we were even looking at Team Sween. But for the young gun in Dylan, nobody was watching out for Nolson. And listen to a few of his numbers here from CWL Vegas. I want to talk about a few of these because these are very, very impressive. Hardpoint, he had a 1.32, of which case he was 5th overall at the tournament, which was higher than Temp. And Control, he had a 1.23, which case he was top 18, but he was higher than Gunless. And Respawns overall, he had a 1.29, which was 5th, which was higher than Scump. It was higher than Alex, and it was higher than Decimate. And Decimate had a fantastic tournament, by the way, at Vegas. Really the only main slayer for G2, to keep that in mind. And his overall KD, he had a 1.21, of which case he was 9th overall, and he was higher than Hook and Methods. And I say all of that to now say this. When you start a race, everyone lines up together. Everyone's waiting for the gun to shoot off, and once it does, the sprint begins. All 8 players, or however many you want to use in this situation, all of them start to sprint. The first 20 meters of the race, everyone looks close, right? If anything, you might even have a few racers who start off slow and then pick it up. Then you have a few that have a great start but end slow. And I use the same analogy for the first event of Call of Duty. Everyone starts off at the same place. And if you were to take a picture, if you were to have the finish line at 20 meters rather than 100 meters, then the results would be much different. The results would be way different if you started off at 20 meters than if you go to 100 meters. Because you have guys, like I said, who have great starts. You have people who have great finishes. You have guys who are consistent, and you have teams that are all around. And that's my issue with Team Sween to a point, was that maybe they just had a great start and they understood the game better than other teams. And will we see the same performance from Nilsson at this tournament than we will at the play-in, or that we will at Fort Worth, that we will at Anaheim, etc., etc. Take that in consideration, along with the fact that my issue with Team Sween isn't necessarily because of the consistency factor, because they looked great. They look like a solid team. I think the duo, the Bash brothers, is what I'm calling them from Europe, and Dylan, as well as Nilsson, the situation were great. They were phenomenal. They were leading the team. But keep in mind who they're practicing against. Who are they playing leading into the play-in? Lightning Pandas? And that's about it. You don't have anyone to practice against, right? Your Red Reserves, your Splices, your Reciprocities, they're no longer there. They moved on. They went to North America. They live there now. They're no longer practicing against you. There is no one that Team Sween can face off against who is better than them, than maybe at times Pandas, and you could argue which one of those two is better than the other. I would probably say Team Sween, at least at Vegas, but like I said, we can move forward from that. And then also they're going to be in what I consider to be, and what most of the community considers to be, the hardest pool. Pool A, with Reciprocity and FaZe. A lot of pressure to make the league, but also to carry the load of slaying is what Nilsson has on his plate right now. We need to see him have a strong performance, because without him, right, without him at Vegas, his team went negative in every respawn game mode. And not just respawn and hardpoint and control, they were clearly negative without his presence. So my big question is, can Team Sween, with all of these things that I'm kind of throwing at them, saying, hey, consistency of the first event, the ability to not have a whole lot of key practice coming into the group of death, and you have one guy who really showed up and kind of proved a lot of people wrong, but can he keep that up? That is my question. And Nilsson, very bright spotlight heading in to the play-in. Next, at number 3, we have Havoc of Straight Rippin', a.k.a. Team Spacely. I'll be honest, when I saw this team originally formed coming into the year, I was stunned by their early online results. I was coming into Vegas, and I was very skeptical. I was like, okay, well, hey, we have a few of these players, and I have faith, right? I have faith in Mox. I have faith in Major Maniac. I have faith for Spacely as being a leader in big situations, but I didn't have faith in Nagafin and Havoc, right? Talk about their previous seasons, and you probably can't have a whole lot of amazing results to look at, regardless of prior titles leading into IW and World War II. So my big surprise was to see Havoc playing as well as he was, right? At CWL Vegas, he helped lead his team to a top 8 placement, had a 1.76 KD in Search and Destroy, and it wasn't just S&D. There were many moments where he was slaying out in respawn game modes as well, but Team Spacely, to me, is still somewhat under question regarding their consistency moving forward in the year, but that relies on a consistent slaying front, one that possesses and needs to have Havoc in it. And they fall into Pool C with 100 Thieves and the Pittsburgh Knights heading into the play-in. They might have some problems with the 100T. I don't think Pittsburgh Knights is going to be as strong as a contender than many people think they will be, but I think Havoc played great to start off the year, but if he can keep it up on a team that desperately needs him, Team Spacely can continue to be a contender. We won't be getting highlight numbers from Spacely and Nagafin throughout the rest of this season, so it's really going to be a matter of Mox and Major Maniac with the ARs. We're going to need to see, like I said, Havoc with the SOG, even with the Maddox at times, really performing to the highest of his abilities, because like I said, it's those three, and you're not really going to get a whole lot from the others, and that's no hate on the others, but that's not what their role is meant to do, right? Nagafin's meant to fill in the gaps. Spacely's there to IGL and do whatever's necessary. The other three are meant to slay, and Havoc, your spotlight is on you, right, in the SMG department. There's no one else to look for. So I'm seeing whether or not Havoc can continue not just the online play, not just the start of the year play at Vegas either, but can move on into the play-in when the pressure is on and moving forward in the year. Now for number 2, we have Kenny of 100 Thieves heading into Vegas. I had Kenny as one of my 5 players to watch simply because of his incredible year in World War II. One of the most insane returns that we have ever seen from a player because, of course, he did play back in Advanced Warfare under Justice, most notably. But this is one of the most insane returns that we've ever seen from a player, without question. 3 major championships, runner-up at Champs, best SMG player in the world, CWL Rookie of the Year, CWL MVP. All of those titles in 1 year. And he comes into Black Ops 4 headlining one of the biggest brands in esports today with 2 of the best ARs Call of Duty has ever seen in Slasher and Octane, with a young gun talented teammate of which he's won a title with, of which this guy has the fire. He is one of the best S&D players in the world, especially in World War II. And lastly, with an IGL he feels comfortable with and won a championship with and has said he likes playing with Enable. And at CWL Vegas, you finish top 12. You finish 3rd in your group. You get knocked out by LG, which granted LG goes on to finish top 4, but it was somewhat of a rival game, right? The battle of the big threes on paper. How are they going to perform against one another? And you lose to this team, and you get smashed on your way out. They pushed you out the door. Well, I think they got 100-point clubbed in the final hardpoint game that knocked them out of the tournament. Speaking of hardpoint, Kenny, 0.86 in that game mode. S&D, he played well. Control was fine, but it wasn't MVP worthy. We're not seeing the same numbers that we saw from the prior title leading into Black Ops 4, and that necessarily isn't Kenny's fault, right? We've all heard the internal arguments. We've all seen the disagreements that Hunter T have had. Don't even get me started on the running topic of whether or not he should be running a Saga or not, but regardless, when 100 Thieves, if they're expected to be a contender, they need a solid sub presence, just like what I talked about with Havoc on Straight Rippin' or Team Spacely. They have good ARs, right? And for 100 T, you can even, kind of raise that conversation up. They absolutely have great AR players, but they need someone in the SMG department to really pick it up. You already have players who have specialized in an assault rifle throughout their entire career. Pharaoh ran one last season, right? He was a flex, but he was very good with the AR. Enable in his past career was known for running an assault rifle for the longest time. And don't even get me started on Slasher and Octane, like I talked about earlier, who have made their career off of being AR talent. The spotlight is on Kenny right now to hold on all of those titles he had in World War II. And now heading into Black Ops 4, he does not have a solid tournament. A lot of people were very surprised by his performance, including myself, thought we would see a much different play style. And whether or not it's his fault or not, the stats and the pressure is still on him to perform. Spotlight is definitely on Kenny, but it is not the brightest spotlight at this tournament. That belongs to newly FaZe Selim. He should be at the top of everyone's list. If he's not your number 1 player to look out for just based on storylines, there is something wrong. FaZe has rolled the dice, ladies and gentlemen. They have taken a chance on an up-and-coming talent. But Landon, hold on. Hold on, Landon. Hold on. Because we've seen this before, right? We've seen this with E United and Abizi. We saw this, how it worked out very well for Optic Gaming and Dashi. Yes, that's true. But this is a much different situation because those players have had a season to prove themselves. Abizi played in World War II. Dashi was playing a little bit toward the end of Infinite Warfare in all of World War II before Optic even thought about picking him up. For God's sake, FaZe even saw Priesta in IW play the entire season before they even thought about adding him to the team. And Selim has never played on LAN before. He's never played at a major championship, and he replaces what is known as the best statistical player for FaZe at CWL Vegas and Methods. So let's recap a little bit for the spotlight that Selim has on him. Never played on LAN before. Many don't think he deserves the spot. Many high-level community members are saying he doesn't deserve this spot. He hasn't earned it yet. You represent FaZe, which is one of the biggest and known organizations in esports today. You have a very high expectation because your play online for the last few years has been stellar, but now it's time to prove it on LAN. You were replacing Methods, who was the best statistical player for FaZe at CWL Vegas, and you're mixed up in the roster change of now having comparisons against him And it probably shouldn't have, it's not even your fault that you're in that situation, but it happens. And now your spotlight is brighter because of that. And many don't think that Method should have been dropped from this team. You also happen to be, for your first tournament, in the pool of death. And in the pool of death, and in all the light of that, you're in a pool of death for a tournament that decides your year. So all of those things built up into the first tournament of young Celium's year. He's going to grow up pretty quick. But I will say this isn't the first time that we have seen a change like this from FaZe and even replays, right? This isn't the first time we've seen them take a chance. I will say this is the biggest chance that they have ever taken, but they've rolled the dice a few times in the past. They've betted and it worked out, right? FaZe and replays, like I said, are known for picking up young talent. They early on in replays' career, he picked up his teammate Classic to join FaZe, right? He picked up his friend to join a professional esports organization in FaZe Clan. He also picked up Zuma, who wasn't proven at the time. He picked up Attach, who, funny enough, are both of his teammates right now. He picked up Attach toward the end, or the beginning, rather, of AW. They won a world championship together. He was also on the very first team that had both Hook and Timp in the starting lineup along with himself. He helped pick up Priesta, and now he helps pick up Celium. He has a great track record, and honestly, I think Celium has a great core around him. His role makes sense for the team. He's a very fast-paced assault rifle player and has been for the entirety of his career, and that happens to be the best position in the game right now to slay. But there is a ton of pressure on this guy to perform, and at the same level, many people are expecting to see him play at the same level that Dashy is right now for Optic. The same standards are there. Dashy has raised the expectations for all young talent joining high-level organizations. And I'm not sure if he can keep up with that. And to be honest, I'll give him a pass. I'll give him a total pass to say, you know what, Celium, if you don't have your first event of the year, if for whatever reason a FaZe didn't manage to qualify, it probably isn't your fault. But the pressure is still there from the fans, from the community, from the organization. And with all those things in mind, we'll see how Celium can perform at the play-in. Those are my top 5 players to watch heading into the Pro League play-in. Of course, like I said, that does take place January 16th. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know by getting involved in the social media game by using the hashtag the Esports Dispatch.